So this is a very special video to me because this is actually one of my grail items, so to speak. I've long wanted a compact Mac kind of like this because they're easy to really manage. I mean, the SE30 had capacitor plagues, sure, but something like this is easy to put away, easy to bring out, easy to mess around with, because you only had to bring out a keyboard and mouse in the machine itself. You didn't have to bring out a monitor, you didn't have to worry about adapters or anything because Macs had proprietary video ports at the time. It was just all around a better thing to have a compact Mac. Now, the story behind this machine is I've actually worked on it before. My friend actually owned this machine. Well, his shop did. It was given to them by one of their customers, and his boss wanted to do something with it. Unfortunately, life kind of got in the way, things got busy, and they said, well, listen, we need to clean stuff out because we're probably going to be moving here in a bit, so if you want this machine, come and grab it, pretty much. So I didn't even bother questioning it. I went over there and I grabbed this machine and brought it home and was very happy the entire way back. So this is a Macintosh SE, and it's just a regular SE, which is kind of unfortunate for one reason and one reason only. It has an 800K floppy drive, and that sucks for me because I do not have a means to make 800K floppies. I only have USB floppy drives on hand at the moment, and those cannot read, let alone write, 800K floppy disks. So this machine is kind of an island at the moment, so to speak, because I can't do much with it until I can move software on and off it, and it looks like my best option is to get a SCSI to SD or a floppy EMU, because I can upgrade this thing to a 1.4 meg drive. The problem is I would need to get a ROM and drive controller out of a dead FDHD, which unfortunately I do not have on hand, and getting one of those is not very economical. Hell, just trying to find one of these alone is not economical because they are very expensive, and I live in a place where people know what they have. So that I was able to even get this for free is just nothing short of a miracle, and I'm eternally thankful for it. So what all did I get with it? Well, this very keyboard, actually. This is a Apple keyboard in contrast to the Apple extended keyboard, which was sold at the same time, and it has the nice Salmon Alps switches, something I am really a big fan of. And we have the Apple mouse, which is in very good condition for as old as it is. We also got the manuals, documentation, which I'm not going to bother to show on video, but I do have those, and we did get the floppy disks. So we have these little guys here, which is good because, again, I do not have any software I can put on this thing, and if the system software had croaked, well, I'd be up the creek without a paddle because I do not have a means of making replacement floppies for this machine. So we have Macintosh Utilities, your Apple Tour. Unfortunately, this disk got formatted, so that's not actually what it is anymore. HyperCard and Stacks, this disk is bad. Macintosh Utilities Disk 2, Printing Tools, and System Tools. More of this later, but they do a very interesting little thing that I did not know they do until I was doing one of the drafts for this video. We'll get into that in a minute. And the floppy drive, surprisingly, still works. I have not refurbed it in any way. I have not opened this machine, besides when I did to get the battery out of it some years ago when my friend still had it in his possession. So I didn't even touch the floppy drive, and it's still good. So I was very shocked by that. I'm not going to turn around because it's already hooked up and I don't want to really mess with it too much. But behind us we have two ADB ports, a floppy drive port, and I do have an external floppy somewhere. We have a outbound SCSI port, which is kind of nice to have. I do have an enclosure I may be able to use with this thing, and two serial ports and a headphone jack. All around, very good little selection. Anyway, so that said, one final little tour of the front here. Unfortunately, this machine has seen some abuse, because if I grab it and pull it down a little bit, you can see it's kind of melted, and I do not know why. Something really hot was set on this machine at some point, and I think that kind of marred it a little bit, but it still works perfectly fine. So, hey, there's that going for it. So, you may also notice this is not a dual drive model, even though there is provisions for a dual drive. And that's because, as you can see here, we do have a hard drive installed. It is a 20 megabyte stepper motor drive, I believe, and oh boy, you're going to hear it when we start it up. That thing it's got a very distinctive sound. I'll just leave it at that. So that's pretty much it for the external tour. Let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Alright, I'm hoping this isn't going to be overexposed because I do have the shutter speed set so you can actually see the screen without it looking all dark and such. So let's give it the fire up. there's that stepper motor kicking in. We can see that hard drive LED just going. And man, oh man, that was a fast boot. Just don't get that kind of boot time anymore, unfortunately. So I do have this set up in southpaw configuration because I am not trying to control this around the camera and bumping the tripod. So if this looks like absolute garbage, if I mess up a little bit, well, I do apologize. Not much I can do. So this is currently the system installed on here. We have system 6.0.2 with 1 megabyte of RAM. And we got all the nice names and such. 1988. So this was literally, this thing is older than I am. Very nice. So let's go ahead and show off that little trick I was mentioning. So this is when you were actually expected to run your system off a floppy drive, aka the dual drive model. So you would have your system booting off one drive and then, you know, maybe booting an app off the other drive. So what is interesting is back then, let's use system tools. I think we can use here. Put that in, we can see the drive works perfectly fine. And here's pretty much the system setup. So this would just copy the system folder from the floppy drive onto the hard drive and all the extensions and such. So very quickly before we do this, well, actually, let me explain one more thing before we jump into this. This is the HD SE setup. This is what you use to format hard drives. And back then, this only worked on Apple hard drives. There exists a patched version that will work on any hard drive or most hard drives. But back then, you were actually expected to get a utility from the hard drive manufacturer to reformat your hard drive. So this, if you were to put in a non-Apple drive, this would just beep at you and be like, can't do that, I'm sorry. But there is, again, a patched version that will let you do that. So very quickly, since there is no other way for me to verify this, note the order of these drives. The one we booted off is up here, the Macintosh HD, and the boot drive is always first. Kind of like how on Windows, the boot drive tends to always be C. So we're going to launch the installer from within Mac OS, or System 6. Now, behind the scenes, what just happened is it actually changed the boot drive, which is really interesting. So this is how we would install Mac OS, or System 6, onto our hard drive, and this supports the SE, the Plus, and the 2 and 2X. So watch what happens when we quit. And actually, if we were to have another floppy drive in here, we could actually install this onto a floppy drive. So watch what happens when we quit. You will now notice System Tools is up at the top there, and if I actually try to eject this disk, it is going to remain there. I do have the disk on hand, but as you can see, it is just remaining there because the disk is loaded into RAM right now. So that happens when it needs the disk for something. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the disk back in, and the only way at this point to get the system to hand control back over to the hard drive is if I restart the machine. So I'm gonna do exactly that. It's gonna give me my disk back, and now it's gonna boot back into macOS from the hard drive. And I know this is called System 7 or System 6. Rest assured, I do know. I'm just calling it macOS for simplicity here. So, very neat how it kind of behind the scenes changes the boot device like that. So now, as you can see, we are booted back off Macintosh HD. I can put the disk in, it'll read the disk, and I can drag it back down to the trash, and it disappears as it should now. Now, you may be wondering, why are you going through dragging it down to the trash? Well, another artifact of the dual drive nature of this machine, or even single drive nature, because you'd be swapping disks all the time to run some apps and such. You would want the disk loaded into RAM like it was before, but if we hit Command E, which you would do on a normal Mac, on a modern Mac, it leaves the disk kind of there in an artifact state. What we need to do is to get the disk properly ejected and fully cleared from the system, we have to drag it to the trash. Now, in System 7, there is actually a command added to the special menu called Put Away, and that is Command Y for the uninitiated, and that will actually get rid of the disk, like entirely. You don't have to drag it to the trash anymore, and I believe it wasn't until like macOS 8 or 9 that Command E and Put Away were integrated one and the same. I could very well be wrong on that. So it's very interesting how, like, floppy drives, you weren't expected to have a hard drive back. Hard drive was for the people who had a lot of money to spend. So it's kind of one of those things, you know, with an artifact of the times where, you know, you had all floppies and nothing else. So, let's look at what's on this computer, because I actually reformatted this computer. It was running a bit slow, and I was able to just reinstall, you know, Mac OS from that floppy. And what's weird is the utilities disks also have Mac OS installers on them, so I have backups if I need. So applications, I did try to put HyperCard on here, but like I said, that disk is bad, so it didn't really go on very well. We have utilities, which we have the HD SE setup. We have disk first aid, which allows us to check the drive for problems. Thankfully, this one is completely healthy, so we don't need to worry about that so much. We have to quit before we can go back to the Finder. More of that later. HD backup, which I think lets us just copy things over to, yeah, it just lets us copy the drive onto multiple floppies. So, pretty cool that that comes with the machine. Responder, I think, yeah, oh, that's interesting. I think it's corrupted. Apple File Exchange, I believe, is for interfacing with PC files. I could be wrong on that. Closed View is... the application is... that's weird. I think the floppy was giving me some lip when I was trying to copy things over. Map. Interesting. So, Font DA Mover is an interesting one. So, this was back before, you know, you could just double click on a font and click install. You actually had to use a utility to do this. I believe we can copy some fonts over, we can remove them, but oh yeah, it shows us also what they look like. But desk accessories are fun because desk accessories tie into a limitation of this system. So as you may notice, I can't actually get out of the application without quitting it. So desk accessories are little applets, to say the least, that can run alongside the Finder. So if I go to, I believe the chooser exists as one of them. You see it's loading it up. Boom, there's a chooser, and I can actually go back to the Finder and interact with the Finder. Control panel is another desk accessory. It lets me control a bunch of stuff. Let's see, desktop pattern. Let's make art. Yeah. So, turn off menu blinking. Why the hell not? Time. This is not going to keep any time because the battery has been deleted for weight savings. Keyboard. Pre-rate. Mouse. Sound. Did not have many sounds with this machine. As we can see, the speaker is perfectly healthy. But yeah, as you can see, again, we can interact with the Finder. So desk accessories were not bound to that limitation of the whole app took over the machine. In fact, I don't know, can you run multiple at the same time? Let's find out. Yes, you can. You can actually run multiple desk accessories at the same time. So there are actually other ones, but they are not in the Apple menu for some odd reason. Let's see if we can go find them. Very interesting that a lot of these are not coming up, busy or missing. So, is this going to work? Even though it says there are some on here, they are not actually showing up for me, which is weird. Because it's saying they are on the hard drive, but they are not actually showing up anywhere, so very odd. But yeah, that's really it for this video. I mean, there's not really much else to talk about. It's just kind of an interesting little machine. I do have grand plans for it, but right now I really can't do too much with it because, again, I don't have the means of getting software onto it. Now, at some point, I do know I am going to be working on Ryan's SE because he wants to get a SCSI to SD for his, and that thing actually has some neat upgrades in it. So, at which point that happens, I may make a video on it because I said I would come over there and help him with it when time comes. So that'll be fun to look at. So yeah, let's go ahead and just, you know, give it a little bit of a cleanup. Why the hell not? As I say, well, let me, I mean, it wouldn't really matter. I mean, I there's nothing really on here. So set startup. Alright, there we go. Multi-Finder. Okay, this video is going to go on for a little bit longer then. Let's see what Multi-Finder does. This is one of those, I promise I know what I'm doing. I've just never actually get to sit down with a machine like this and actually use it. So Multi-Finder lets us have the multitasking. Because as you can see, there is our multitasking menu up there now. So I believe now we can actually run apps side by side. So let's go to utilities. Bring up disk first aid. Yeah, now we have the Finder. Unfortunately, it's not going to let us get out of this, so let's see. Okay. Can I go back? Yeah, now we have multitasking. Okay, so Regular Finder is not allowed to multitask, but Multi-Finder is. And this is why. So, regular Finder on 1 megabyte is probably the preferred option here because we're running out of RAM very fast here because this only has 1 megabyte. I am jealous, Ryan's has 4. But yeah, that's really it for this video. Just a quick detour into Multi-Finder, which does give you multitasking, but again, since RAM was at a premium, the value of it may have been a little bit dubious to say the least. But it's there, at least. So now we have the whole you can shut off your Macintosh because, again, this isn't soft power. We can't use that button. We just reach around and off she goes. So thank you for joining me for this video. Hopefully you liked it, and well, I'll see you guys around.